Hi everyone, this is Yana Smakula for Pretty Pink Posh, and thank you for joining me today. In this video, I'm showing how to do no-line pencil coloring using Pretty Petunias stamp set. Petunias are some of my favorite flowers for the summer. When I lived in Ukraine, every summer I used to have 2 or even 3 pots of gorgeous blooming petunias in various colors on our balcony. Now, since violet is the color of this year, and because I also happen to love this color quite a bit, I decided to color these images using violet. I started working on my card by stamping images I wanted to use in watermark ink onto light gray cardstock panel. This is Fog Gray from Simon Says Stamp. I knew I wanted to use the large flower duo, and I also wanted to add additional flowers and leaves to make this cluster a bit fuller. I'm very lazy when it comes to masking. I was planning to use masks for today's stamping, but later ended up not making the masks, and I simply stamped my images in watermark ink overlapping previously stamped layers. I picked embossing watermark ink for my stamping, but any pale ink color will do for this technique. Just make sure to pick the color of ink you'll be able to color over with the pencils that you plan to use. And you can always test this on the back side of your paper. Use it as your palette. I always do so. As I was stamping, I made notes in my head which flowers and leaves were going to be in the front and which would be in the back. If you struggle with this, you can either mask your images so that you don't have any confusing stamped lines on your panel like I have here, or test stamp your cluster onto a piece of scrap paper and label everything. When you go to color your image, you can then use that as a cheat sheet. The Pretty Petunias stamp set from Pretty Pink Posh has very little detail to it, and this is a good thing because as you color, and regardless of what coloring medium you choose, you can add those details to these flowers and leaves yourself. Now, if you've never done no-line coloring and you're thinking right now that you will never be able to do this because it looks so complicated, believe me, it is not as scary as it looks. I felt the exact same way when I first saw colored images that had no lines to them. I didn't even try to color like that because I was so sure that I would fail. And it's that perception that stopped me from doing the no-line coloring for a very long time. I picked my Polychromos colored pencils to color this image, and I used just a handful of pencils. The main colors I used were blue, violet, and white. These are the colors that I used to color the flowers themselves. I sharpened my pencils prior to starting, and at first used the blue-violet color and outlined the base of the petals. I added vines and slight details to the tips of the petals. I was using a very light hand at this point. You don't want to color with a heavy hand right away. Go in light and increase the pressure as you go. As I got to the point where one stamped flower overlapped another stamped flower, I remembered which one I wanted to be in the front and colored that flower, disregarding the other stamped lines or the stamped lines from the flower that would be in the back. It is very helpful to look up images you want to color online. I simply go to Pinterest and type in petunias. I look at photos. Sometimes I search for illustrations. I can also add the name of the coloring medium that I plan to use to look up examples. For instance, I can look up petunias watercolor or petunias pencils. And it is very helpful to see how others have colored this image. Not this exact image, but petunias in general. This will give you color combo ideas and also detail ideas. You'll also notice that I add my pencil strokes going in one direction. I follow the imaginary vines of the petals. So I do not color in circles or horizontals and vertical lines. No, I add pencil going from the base of the petal to the tip of the petal. This helps to make the petal appear dimensional, and even though it is flat, it no longer looks flat on the paper. I also used a green pencil and colored the stems as well as the leaves. I'm not showing the entire coloring process as it is repetitive, and one just needs to see how one petal is colored to be able to understand the process. To blend out the violet color and color the rest of the petal, I used a white pencil. I went over the violet coloring and extended it further into the petal. Next, I came in with a violet pencil again and added more details to that particular element. I don't use any blending solutions when I color. I only blend using my pencils, and as I get to the end of the blending, I use a very heavy hand. So I start with a light hand and increase the pressure as I go. As I continued to color, these stamped lines, especially those that overlap the images where I didn't mask them, disappeared, and just by using the pencils, I was able to bring some images to the front and keep other images in the back of my cluster. It is important to use a sharp pencil when you go in and add your details to your colored images. You need to have it at a fine point to be able to add very fine lines to the colored piece. Once my coloring was complete, I trimmed my panel to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. To create a sentiment, I white heat embossed Hello Gorgeous from the Love Sentiment stamp set. I trimmed it into a skinny strip, wrapped one end around the panel, and cut the other end at an angle. I thought about wrapping the entire strip around the front panel, but decided not to. I foam mounted the panel onto an A2 card base and added sequins to embellish this card. I used Spring Blooms mix and positioned one of the sequins overlapping the vellum panel and the colored panel. This little element holds that vellum panel adhered to the card. I used a very strong glue to secure it nicely in place. I had to put the pencil sharpener over that panel while the glue was drying to keep the vellum piece in place. Here is a quick look at this Hello Gorgeous card made using Pretty Petunias stamp set from Pretty Pink Posh. I hope you've enjoyed this video and will give this idea a try. Do tag us on social media so we can take a peek at your project. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. Thank you. I will see you next time. Bye.